Okay, so hey friends, this is the DJI Avata 2. Obviously, I'm not at my home studio right now. I'm in Indiana flying drones for a company, and I just want to take a second to talk about this thing because it is absolutely incredible. So welcome to my first ever YouTube video filmed in a hotel room, not in my home office, not my YouTube studio. And that's because we are in Indiana, Terre Haute, Indiana this week. I'm working alongside another company. I was hired on as a drone pilot for this project that they're shooting. And one of the things that we did when we were talking about the discussion of how we wanted to shoot the product, what drones would work best, we went ahead and rented the Avata 2. Now, I do not own this drone, and honestly, this is the first time that I'm really flying it outside of last week just prepping for the shoot. However, I do own the Avata 1, the original DJI FPV, several custom-built FPVs, including several Cinewhoops, several 5-inch drones. Just my history with FPV goes a pretty long ways, even though it's not a huge part of the income that I make. It started as a hobby in 2019, and after spending way too much money on it, it's still kind of just a hobby. But this week has a lot of different, we're flying the Mavic 3 Pro, which I have around here somewhere, and just a lot of Mavic 3 Pro standard kind of normal drone tracking shots, as well as closer in tighter quarters Avata 2 shots. Now, one of the things that separates the Avata 2 from the Avata 1 is if you're a filmmaker, if you're doing any sort of professional work, is the fact that you can shoot in D-Log-M with full 10-bit color. Now, this is completely different camera than the Avata 1, and it just blows the Avata 1 out of the water. Typically with the first Avata, we'd be running a GoPro on the top to try to get a better image quality, even though it's still not great. With the Avata 2, we've been flying the built-in camera, and we've been matching it right along with the 5.1K out of the standard D-Log, out of the Mavic 3 Pro, and they look pretty darn good side by side. Obviously, the Mavic 3 Pro's got a little up in quality on that because that's just what that drone is for. But for a little FPV drone, for a tiny little camera like this, it's pulling its weight in some of these shots. Especially this is kind of a sunrise shot going over a cornfield, revealing this truck coming through, and it's losing a little bit in the highlights, but it looks darn good. So I wanted to kind of talk about this video in 3 different ways. Way number 1 is the motion controller, severely underrated. I used to think this is just a gimmick, but honestly I've been using it more and more and more. Number 2, sport mode on the Avata 2, also completely underrated. I know people get FPV drones and they feel like everything they do has to be in full manual mode, or they're just not FPV pilots. And I get it, you need to know how to fly in full manual. However, a lot of the times with a lot of these shots on this corporate shoot, sport mode is the exact way to go, and you're getting very dynamic, still FPV style tight shots, killing it in sport mode. And then number 3 just has to be the image quality. I mean, just the fact that you can buy an FPV drone like this and be using the onboard camera was just something we couldn't do 3-4 years ago. So those are the 3 things I kind of want to talk about. And this first one, the motion controller. You see, when this first came out, I was kind of in that headspace of, no, if you can't fly manual, you shouldn't be flying an FPV. Like, what even is this thing? This is a toy. But this is kind of some test footage that I was just flying around my backyard, just ripping it as fast as I can with the motion controller, pointing where I needed it to go, utilizing my height and depth and kind of all the gimbal movements. And it's a really interesting perspective because typical FPV locks in the gimbal and you're just flying. Whereas with the motion controller, it's utilizing that up and down of the gimbal to show your perspectives when you're flying. And it is a super dynamic looking shot that you're kind of not used to with normal FPV drones, or even normal just flying your Mavics, similar drones like that. So if you got a kit that comes with the motion controller, a lot of these cool movements can be done with this motion controller. And honestly, it's pretty fun and pretty intuitive. I picked it right up after only knowing how to fly on a normal controller. I picked it up and started utilizing it just fine. So don't sleep on the motion controller because it's intuitive, it's fun, it's easy to use, and you can still get some pretty incredible dynamic shots out of the thing. Number 2, now I want to talk about sport mode on this. Now the limitation here is sport mode has a maximum speed of 37 miles an hour, I want to say, which I really just wish they would allow that to go the full 60 something miles an hour that this drone can do in sport mode. That would be cool. I understand why with safety regulations and all kinds of things, and giving a high-powered drone like that to a consumer would probably not be that great. But when you're on corporate shoots and you're on corporate gigs, it depends on the look that your director's going for. With the shoot that I'm on this week, the director's still going for those cinematic slow pan in shots or kind of slowly following, tracking a subject. However, with the Avata, they just want it that much closer to the ground, that much closer to the subject, that much closer to and like indoor areas. And it's just with the propeller guards and things like that, you're almost still flying it like a Mavic indoors or super close to objects or super low to the ground, but you have that security knowing that your props are protected, the drone is much smaller, it's a little bit more nimble, and you can bump up against some things and keep on going sometimes. So don't sleep on sport mode in the Avata because 90% of the time it's a tool that you can utilize that is a slightly different vantage point than your Mavic drones, but it still has that full capability and full control. Do I recommend everyone learn full manual? Absolutely. However, from what I've seen, full manual on corporate shoots sometimes isn't always needed. And so being able to just lock it into sport mode and have full control is sometimes coming in very clutch. Number 3, what I want to talk about is just the cam. The camera's just fantastic. Like, they did such a good job putting 10-bit video, putting D-Log M. Sure, it could be a bigger sensor. Sure, it could be full D-Log. Sure, it could have a lot of other things in it. I would love to see like an Avata Pro with all of the pro level video features. I doubt we'll get that. But I mean, I'm just super impressed with what they've done with the camera. These were running the Freewell ND filters. Got them on Amazon for, I think it was like $50 maybe. But the Freewell, they just snap right onto the front. And so this is, we were just high sun today. This is an ND32. And then for those morning shots, we were running about an ND8, just where we can keep that ISO down and lock our shutter speed in and keep our framing exactly as we need it. I don't understand why we can't shoot in 24 frames a second. So if somebody can please explain that to me, that would be fantastic, because this entire project is going to be in 24 frames a second. And with the Avata, we're shooting in 30 frames a second because that's our closest option to 24 that we can get. I don't get why companies don't just allow that, but I would love to be shooting in 24 to match well with all of our other stuff. We'll probably just wind up slowing this down by 80% for this project. I'm not 100% sure on how that's going to happen, but if anybody in the comments knows why the Avata can't shoot in 24, please let me know, because I'm very, very interested in figuring it out and learning why. So that's just kind of a brief overview of not only the Avata 2, but why I love the Avata 2 so much more than the Avata 1, why we chose to rent this drone for this specific project over the Avata 1, but also like kind of a brief overview of how you make money in video. I'm doing a project right now, not for my own company, for another company in the same area, and I'm just hired on this week mainly to fly these drones and fly these drones well and put drones where we need them to be. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of exciting. It's not often that I get to fly different places. It's not often that I get to be in a hotel room creating YouTube videos about camera gear. But yeah, so I just wanted to pop in, talk about the Avata 2 for a second, share my thoughts, see if you guys have any thoughts, If you do, let me know. But yeah, we're on a mission here to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of 2024. That's a lot of subscribers, and that's not a very large amount of time. So if you learned anything from this video, if you enjoyed watching it, I would appreciate the subscribe, and we will catch you guys on the next one. See ya.